welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to start Chapter 2, Urban Economics. For Chapter 1, there will be new episodes presented to you, but they need some basic knowledge of urban economics, so I start Chapter 2 early. Before we start the series of urban economics, we should know some concept of basic economics. So we start Chapter 2 by introducing them. Well, the first part is in the industry classification. How do we divide companies into different groups? Well, we can divide them in several ways. The most commonly seen is the three-sector theory. Companies are divided into primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. But what's these three sectors? The primary sector is the extractive industry. More specifically, the industry that uses mainly natural resources without deep processing. We can consume them directly. It is an industry that involved in the extraction and collection of natural resources, mainly agriculture, including farming, fishing, animal husbandry, and also gathering and mining. The character of this industry is that they usually uses large amount of land, and products of this industry is fundamental. We can't survive without agriculture products. The secondary sector is manufacturing. They are the sector that generally takes the output of the primary sector and then manufactures finished goods. The character of this sector is that the products of this industry is all made of materials and energy. We can touch and use the products. Usually, manufacturing, electrical factory, water supply industry, and architecture are all secondary sector. The tertiary industry is services. They are the industry that do not produce anything that made of materials. The production are all services instead of end products. They involve the provision of services to other business as well as final consumers. How can we recognize which sector does an industry belongs to? We can use the character of these sectors to do it. The primary sector, the products without deep manufacturing and comes from the nature resources. The secondary sector that produces things that are made of material and energy. The tertiary for tertiary sectors, it's just services. Products are all without anything that made of certain substance. For example, retails. That's a kind of service. Retails are not produce anything. They just transfer products from factory to consumers. That's just the process of service. Another example, let's say a food factory that makes potatoes into potato chips. That belongs to manufacturing. If a food factory if a company that just harvests potatoes in the farmland and then export it, it would belong to primary sector because it just takes the potatoes from a farmland. They do not manufacture. There's no manufacturer in that company that makes potatoes into potato chips. So, of a company that harvests potatoes in a farmland belongs to primary sector. Well, another way to classify the industry is by research the factors of a certain industry. But what is factors? Well, in urban planning, we can simply define factors as the fundamental elements that maintain a system. Taking urban planning, for example, there are social factors, economic factors, cultural factors, ecology factors, and other factors depends on the field in research. In economics, usually there are resources, capital, labor, information, and some other factors that highly affect an industry. Firms can't working without them. The need for factors varies from company to company. Some firms need more money, for they need to buy large amount of basic facilities. Other companies may need more technology to maintain the superior position to other firms in research and development. The cost of these factors are different in different firms, so we can also say the intensive of factors vary from different companies. If the resource cost is superior to other factors in a company or industry, we can say that the company or industry a resource-intensive industry. Similarly, a labor-intensive industry, a capital-intensive industry, or a technology-intensive industry, or say a knowledge-intensive industry. Well, in urban planning, we can also divide industry into two parts, the basic and non-basic parts. What does that mean? Well, basic part or basic sector is the industry that mainly serves the people outside the city, and it can make profit to the city. It is the fundamental sector of a city that determines the development of a city. We can also call the basic part as the basic sector, export sector, primary sector, or independent sector. But be careful, the primary sector is different from the previous one. This is a whole new way of classification of economics. It is the industry for export or services the people outside the city to make profit to the city. It doesn't matter whether the industry is agriculture or not. If the agriculture industry just serves the people inside the city, it is not a basic sector or primary sector in this classification of urban economics. For the non-basic part or sector is the industry that mainly serves the people inside the city. They are dependent to the basic sector. So we can call it dependent sector, local sector, or secondary sector. There are also other ways to judge an industry that depends on the way you research the industry. You can divide them in under a certain standard. For example, if we research the service industry, we can divide it into producer service industry and consumer service industry. If we want to research deeper, there are lots of concepts of them. You can do a further reading by using a geography dictionary. Well, that's for the main concept of industrial classification. For industry Industry structure. We will cover that in our later videos. This is the first part of basic concept of urban economics. There will be several parts more to be uploaded. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave your comments below and don't forget to subscribe.